Good evening, Garden City. I'd like to call to order our regular scheduled council meeting for Monday, March 25th at 7 p.m. Our first order of business is our opening ceremony, which consists of the national anthem, followed by the Pledge of Allegiance, and then followed by a moment of silence for those service members that have given their lives while defending our country. Would everybody please stand? Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. Please be seated. Mr. Miller, can you take the roll, please?
Mayor Walker.
Here.
Mayor Pro Tem Jacobs.
Here.
Councilmember Lynch.
Here.
Councilmember Squires.
Here.
Councilmember Earl.
Here.
Councilmember McCarge.
Here.
Councilmember Kerwin.
Here.
Okay, we'll move on to item 4, approval of the agenda with the elimination of 5A. We'll be moving that to the next council meeting, not tonight.
Mayor,
Councilmember Lynch.
I move for the approval of the agenda for Monday, March 25th, 2019, with the elimination of item 5A.
Support.
Support from Councilmember Squires. Any comments from the table? From the general public? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Hearing none, motion passes 7-0. We have no recognition, no presentation tonight. We'll move on to item 7, comments from state and county officials. I see we have Mr. Peterson here from State Representative Jewel Jones's office. How you doing, sir?
Fine. Good evening, Mr. Mayor, council members, Docs, City Manager Doc Doherty. I usually get up and just start rambling on, but there is a method to the madness. Typically, what I try to do at the beginning of the statement is to point out a National Awareness Day, something that it's like a public service announcement, something that the public would appreciate knowing and hopefully would take action on. The next thing I like to do is do a local update on anything that we're involved in the community, in Garden City, to show how we're engaged. And then I move on to a summary of some action that a state agency has taken that might be useful for you to know. And we got a couple of things I'd like to talk about. And then after that, and then if the governor's done anything of significance, I'll point that out as well. And then finally, I'll give you a summary of legislation that I think is important. And it really falls into two categories. There are actual bills that affect policy, and then there are a lot of resolutions that are passed in the House. And I focus primarily on the House. I don't point all the bills out because there's so many. So I try to focus on things that I think are important. April is National Autism Month, and I had personal experience with that. So I'm quite familiar with some of the challenges. About 3 million people in the United States suffer from autism. Like 1 out of every 10 kids, believe it or not, has autism, and these are people that are really misunderstood. As a matter of fact, our neighboring state rep, Frank Liberati's son, has autism. He actually asked the House to pass a resolution next month recognizing April as Autism Month. When his son was born, you know, he's nonverbal, and frankly, the school system had given up on him, and he just recently graduated from high school. So he just demonstrates the fact that, you know, with the proper care and nurturing, you can be successful. And I did a little bit of research to try to understand some others who may have been successful. Amadeus Mozart had autism, Michelangelo, Jerry Seinfeld. Some people suspect that Bill Gates at Microsoft might have it just because of some of his behavioral traits. Daryl Hannah, the actress. So there are quite a few people who have autism but have done very well in life. And like I said, I've had some personal experience. My nephew has it, and he's done quite well. He recently graduated from high school and is going to college. In terms of state agencies, the Secretary of State, Jocelyn Benson, just announced last week that they're forming an elections commission. Essentially, this is a commission made up of experts and people around the state who understand the issues, potential threats, particularly cybersecurity threats that might affect the electoral system. And so they've organized a group that's going to start meeting next month. And the objective is to advise her on best practices and hopefully point out things that might be an issue as far as the integrity of the electoral system. Locally, Kathy Garrett, who's our county clerk, will be on that committee. So if you want to keep abreast of how they're progressing in terms of dealing with some of the challenges, opportunities, Kathy is someone you could reach out to. And I know Kathy, she's very accessible. The second thing, and this is something that's, I think, really important, the minimum wage increase kicks in Friday, the 29th of this month. Essentially, it moves from $9.25 to $9.45 an hour. Minors 16 and 17 are paid 85% of the minimum wage. Many people don't know that. They don't get the entire thing. And that means they can earn anywhere from $7.86 to $8.03 an hour. And then there are minors, not minors, but teens who work in training jobs can be paid $4.25 an hour. Unfortunately, had they allowed the state initiative to stay in place, we would have reached $12 an hour in 2022. As it is under this law, we won't reach that point until 2030. There are going to be annual increases of a modest amount until they get to that point. So it's going to be about 12 years before you get to $12 an hour. And that's being addressed as I speak in the legislature. The Democrats especially are trying to redress that issue and hopefully accelerate the increase. On the legislative front, a couple of very important things are happening. There's a real big push in government generally, but especially in Michigan, to have more transparency. So they're trying to make sure that many of the FOIA laws apply to the executive branch and the legislative branch of government. So we just recently passed laws that hopefully will address that. The government is now subject to freedom of information. There are some issues in terms of what you can inquire about. The legislature, at the same time, has created what they call the Legislative Open Records Act, which essentially does the same thing in terms of taking a huge step towards offering up more transparency in government. In terms of other bills that might be significant. As you know, opioids are a huge problem. You know, in discussing it with your chief at our meeting last week, Tim, I discovered that your officers are armed with Narcan and do a great job of saving lives in terms of helping people to avoid overdoses. What we're trying to do is statewide is to codify that, not mandate it so much as set a minimum level so that all departments are in fact doing it. I know your fire department as well is involved. One of the major steps made at the state level is now librarians will be empowered to administer Narcan to hopefully avoid drug overdoses. They had a case where someone in a library, someone went to the restroom and found that a person had OD'd, and one of the librarians discovered. And I guess it happens enough that they thought it appropriate to pass legislation. So pharmacists can now prescribe narcotic antagonists to librarians. March 25th is Greek Independence Day. So we honor people with Greek heritage. Another note of local interest to folks is that part of the Lodge Freeway has been renamed in honor of Aretha Franklin, which I thought was a nice gesture. People don't realize she made a lot of donations in that area. Also, and this is in memory of my mother, I take pride in saying this, April 2nd is Pay Equity Day. For the women in the council and in the audience, what that means is that it takes until April the 2nd for women to earn the same amount of money that men earned last year. That's all I had.
Thank you, sir. Appreciate it. And then also from Senator Betty Jean Alexander's office, we have Lisa Clayton Hicks, who's also a Dearborn Heights councilwoman, and she's a liaison for Senator Ann Alexander.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Good evening, everyone. Good evening, council, city manager, and of course, the community, the residents. Thank you for introducing me. And, you know, I am now the liaison for Senator Betty Jean Alexander, your senator. And as you mentioned, I'm a city council member. I'm not going to take much of your time this evening. I just want to introduce myself. Many of you I know because I've been in your community for some time. I'm a part of the Kiwanians for 10 years, and Garden City Kiwanis is my club, my home club now. So I want you to know who I am, and I'm always available to you. And I do the same for my residents in Dearborn Heights. I want to be available to work with you, and we build bridges so we can accomplish more together that benefits your community. Thank you.
Thank you. And I don't see anybody here from the county. So seeing none, we'll move on to community events. I'm going to call up Parks and Rec Director Dan Plomadden.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. Tonight, I wanted to share with everyone here in attendance and at home some exciting information with the Parks and Rec Department. A couple announcements. One in regards to the upcoming Bacon Run. Believe it or not, it's not very far away. August 17th will be the 4th annual Great Bacon Run held in Garden City Park. And we have all the usual events that we've held for the last 3 years, the 5K, the 10K, and then we also have the Kids Run. This year we also have added a couple new events. We have a 1 mile event. For those that aren't up for the 3.1 mile challenge, they can do a 1 mile run or walk. And then we also have, for the go-getters out there, we have a new event also called the Whole Hog Run, which is the 5K, the 10K, and the 1 mile. So that's 10.3 miles total if you're up for it. So, but we are in need of sponsorships for this year's event. I've passed along a flyer to everyone at the table. We're looking for sponsors, and we are looking for sponsorship ranging from $500 to $1,000, which includes an assortment of perks and benefits, including some race comp entries with that sponsorship. So I'll be in attendance for the rest of the meeting, and obviously everyone knows how to get a hold of me. But for anybody out there that's looking to get involved with the event, it's a great way to get your business name out there. It's a great way to participate in the event, so we are looking for sponsors. The main reason I am here tonight is to share with everyone the launch of a new effort in the Parks and Rec Department. It's a newsletter. It is called Play in Garden City, and it's a bi-monthly digital publication that we're going to be posting on the city website. It's going to be a 2-month preview of what's coming up in the department, also with some things that are, big events like the Bacon Run that we'll highlight in this digital brochure, or digital newsletter, I should say. But I wanted to take a minute and just highlight a couple exciting new programs that the Parks and Rec Department is going to be offering. One program is called Start Smart. Now, Start Smart is a national initiative with the National Alliance for Youth Sports. It is a parent-child participatory program geared towards boys and girls ages 2 to 7. And we're going to be running these programs at the ice arena this summer when the ice is out. As everybody remembers, one of the big incentives that we talked about with the concrete floor is we could do some indoor programming. So we'll be getting a divider net and cutting the court, or the ice I should say, in half and running classes on 2 sides. So all this information is on the website right now as we speak. I'll be around to answer any questions anybody might have. But we're going to be offering Start Smart Move and Play, which is for 2 and 3-year-olds, Start Smart Sports Development, Start Smart Soccer, Start Smart Basketball, and Start Smart Tennis. So again, and one exciting new feature that we're offering in the department is online registration. So we're going to have that available for Start Smart and some other programs. Another new exciting event, and I want to make sure to show this. This is later on in the newsletter. It's a new event that we're going to be hosting at the ice arena in the summertime. It's called Friday Night Glow Bounce. So Friday nights at the arena will be kind of a combination of airtime meets Bounce It Up meets Garden City. So we're going to have bounce houses and inflatables from end to end at the arena, and have our glow lights and disco lights on and everything there, and just a big family-friendly kind of event. So we are looking for volunteer groups that want to come help man some of the stations, but that'll start the first Friday in June. So very exciting stuff at the arena. And again, all this information is on the city website, gardencitymi.org/parks. So if there's no questions, thank you for your time.
Thank you.
All right.
Okay, moving on to petitions and communications. I have a couple communications tonight. I want to recognize a Garden City resident, certificate of recognition. The mayor and city council of Garden City wishes to recognize Marion Langley on the celebration of her 102nd birthday on February 7th. So it's a belated happy birthday. We're going to get her this certificate and wish her a happy 102 birthday. Hope we all make it there, right?
That's awesome.
That's awesome. Yeah, we went to school together. Moving on.
Quickly.
We received a letter from Canton Fire Department to Chief Harmon. On behalf of Canton Township, I'd like to express our gratitude for assisting us with a structure fire at the crossings of Canton on Friday evening. Sending a squad to assist our crew was greatly appreciated. Providing support through mutual aid helps make our communities stronger and safer places to live. And Canton Township will continue to offer the same assistance to your city should the need ever arise. So they're thanking us for a big apartment fire they had, but that's what mutual aid's all about, surrounding cities helping each other out. But this is a nice letter from Canton thanking us for our assistance. Good job, Garden City Fire Department. Okay, at this time, I'm going to move to public hearing on recreational marijuana. Before I open up the floor to anybody, I'm going to let Mr. Doherty speak on this.
All right, thank you, Mayor. This is something Garden City has already passed in the last number of months. It was opting out of recreational marijuana, not to allow any establishments Our wording was fine, except it basically said no other establishments for marijuana allowed other than the 3 that we currently allowed for medical marijuana. Went to a couple of different meetings and workshops where it was told to me, pretty much put the word straight out there that says no recreational facilities, rather than just saying only medical marijuana. So this is revisiting the same ordinance and just making an adjustment to it by putting in specifically words such as, the city prohibits completely the establishment or operation of any and all categories of recreational marijuana establishments within its boundaries. This includes a prohibition upon the establishment or operation of any type of recreational marijuana establishment through or at medical marijuana facilities located in city limits. So basically, it's just rehashing what we've already done, putting more direct words in so that it's not ambiguous, to make sure that the council's decision was to not have recreational facilities in our city, and we're moving forward with this ordinance.
Okay, so with that, I'll open up the public hearing on anybody that wishes to speak on recreational marijuana opt-out ordinance. Anybody wishing to speak on that? There's a 3-minute time limit, and this is your opportunity to make the comments.
Okay. All right, thank you. I will not go over 3 minutes. Good evening. My name is Laura Ross. I'm the owner of Trustworthy Holistic Caregivers Growth Center here in Garden City. 10 years ago, had you said to me that I would be affiliated with a marijuana facility, I would have laughed. For 18 years, I managed a temporary agency and knew nothing about how to grow marijuana or the benefits of it. I was closed-minded and judgmental of those that used marijuana. Over the last 9 years, however, I've witnessed and seen many miracles this plant has offered to people with seizures, cerebral palsy, multiple sclerosis, chronic pain, cancer, and many more illnesses and diseases. The decision to not allow recreational marijuana, I feel, is based on fear and being uneducated. We are so worried about marijuana businesses and the problems they may or may not bring, but allow other adult-related businesses that cause much more harm to ourselves and our society. The city has requested that marijuana businesses be tucked away in the industrial area, out of sight from public. This being said, it should not matter whether it is medical or recreational. I find it very hypocritical that we allow 5 bars and 8 liquor stores on main streets in the city, which most of them have no problem if we bring our underage children in with us. We sit there, we hang out, we drink, and then we get in a car and leave. However, anyone that comes to a recreational marijuana facility will not be able to enter unless they are 21. They will not be allowed to hang around and consume any product, therefore not leaving high or buzzed. Unlike liquor stores and bars, marijuana facilities must also have security guards, which will keep things orderly. All marijuana facilities will be strictly monitored by the state and will have frequent visits from state representatives to make sure they are operating within the laws put in place. For Garden City to allow medical but not recreational does not mean there will be less marijuana throughout the city. It only means that they will not reap the tax revenue benefits from it. If an adult from Garden City wants to purchase marijuana, they'll just go to the adjacent city and bring it home, or if not made easily accessible, will just grow themselves. I personally would prefer it to make it easier and safer for an adult to go to a well-secured business to purchase marijuana than to have them grow it in their home. I believe their neighbors would prefer that as well. Marijuana is not going away. As my husband would say, you can't put the toothpaste back in the tube. Eventually, sooner than later, it will be federally legal, so why not take advantage of the tax revenue now before it's too late? Thank you.
Thank you. Anybody else?
Good evening. Mr. Mayor, Councilman, Mr.
State your name,
Doherty.
please.
I'm sorry, my name is Craig Aronoff. I'm an attorney with Aronoff Law in Royal Oak, Michigan. I specialize in the cannabis industry. I happen to have the pleasure of representing Ms. Ross and their team that will be setting up and operating a medical facility under the old ordinance. They're privileged to have that permit, and we look forward to getting that up and running. What I'd like to do is just keep the conversation alive as it relates to recreational. I understand the need to maybe say let's opt out temporarily and kind of investigate and see how this all plays out. What I don't want to do is limit the opportunity to revisit this or not put some kind of sunset possibly into that ordinance. For the reason that, first and foremost, other communities would have the opportunity to deliver into Garden City anyway. So recreationally, if we're building these facilities and setting them up just for medical, we have to appreciate that it doesn't necessarily limit the sales of recreational that will come into Garden City anyway, with no control or opportunity to receive the sales tax revenue and excise tax revenue that will generate. In addition, when we talk about the rules and the idea that, well, we just want to see what the rules will be, we just want to see how this will frame out, we want to have a better understanding of it before we opt in and move forward. What I'd like to do is just point out what the director of the Bureau of Medical Marijuana Regulation did when they came in and now have this Prop 1 that got voted in. Crossed off the word medical. Outside of that, the Bureau of Marijuana Regulation now exists. And I don't mean to be flippant about it, but the reality is that when we look at the rule set and we say, how will these facilities be built? There isn't a brick, there isn't a security camera, there isn't a line item of Cat 5 cord cabling for all the camera systems. There isn't any lights, there isn't any energy changes. There is literally not an iota different as to how that facility will be built as a grow facility. I can tell you the same is true of a processing, and quite frankly, the same is true of a provisioning center or retail store, as it's known. And the reality is that the only real difference will be people that are allowed in past the authorized point within that store can no longer be just medical patients, but then would be people authorized and older than 21. So anyone can walk in a liquor store, but you have to be older than 21 to get into the back of a provisioning center. So there's a significant security change.
30 seconds.
Thank you. And I'm just pointing that out because the fear of where we're headed, and we want to understand that Laura has done a good job getting the rules in place for medical, and this will be built without every intent to meet every security apparatus. But what will be lacking if we stick with just the recreational is the opportunity for the city to fully benefit from all the tax revenue and the opportunity to offer a safe and fair opportunity for your medical facilities to compete against other stores throughout the city and cities in the area. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Anybody else wishing to speak on medical marijuana opt-out? Mr. Hunt?
Kevin Hunt, Garden City. This reminds me of a while back when Granholm was looking for extra money, so she put out an extra liquor license where anybody that had beer and wine or liquor license had to buy another license could sell before noon. Garden City decided we weren't going to do that. Some of the business owners here went out and purchased that license ahead of time and then could do absolutely nothing with it. 7-Eleven down at Middle Belt in Warren, you used to watch them come in there, get turned away, and they'd walk across the street into Westland to Walgreen or CVS, pick up their beer while they were on their way out with their boat, headed out to enjoy themselves on Friday or Saturday at the lake. We're the same way now. You drive around the city. My wife and I drove it a few weeks back. You've got 13 either liquor or beer and wine stores. You've got, it's amazing, it was 13, 13, 13. You've got the same with bars and or restaurants that serve alcohol. And you've got 13 drugstores out there that are pumping opioids out of them as fast as the prescriptions can get in. And we're going to turn around and say, no, we don't want the tax revenue in here. It's already been voted on by the citizens of Michigan to say, yes, we want recreational marijuana. It got passed. Now you want to pass this over and then later on come back, oh, everybody else is doing it. It went down the road. It went to another city. I don't agree with that. I'd rather see the tax money come in here now. Thank you.
Thank you. Anybody else? Okay, seeing none, we'll move on to item 11, our consent agenda.
Mayor?
Councilmember Lynch.
I move for the approval of the consent agenda, items 11A, 1 through 4.
Support. Support for Councilmember Earl. Do you want to read it? No.
I sure do. There are many mayoral reappointments, it looks like, all the way through. Michael Jones, Barbara Sandberg, and Nora Fix on the Commission on Aging with the term to expire 12/31/2022. Planning Commission, Eric Walls, with a term to expire 12/31/2022. Recreation Commission, Suzanne McFadden, Paul Matthews, Dennis Kapelinski, with a term to expire 12/31/2022. Zoning Board of Appeals, Dick King, with a term to expire 12/31/2022. And the Board of Trustees, Penelope Cly and John Fleming with a term to expire 12/31/2023.
Okay, council, just so you're aware, these appointments pop up every month, different months. What we're doing is we're extending everybody's term so they all expire at the end of the year the year that their term was up for renewal. So that way, we're not constantly doing these, and everybody's going to be starting out fresh on January 1st of the next year. So that you're going to see all these coming up as they won't all be due at the same time, but when they come up, like in April of this year or whatever, they're going to be extended to December 31st. So we're going to get everybody expiring on 12/31 of these years to going forward. Just cleaning this up a bit. Any other comments from the table? From the general public? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Hearing none, motion passes 7-0. We'll move on to our action items. Item B1, recreational marijuana opt-out.
Mayor,
Councilmember Jacobs.
I move to approve the attached amendment to the prohibition upon marijuana establishments within the city limits.
Support.
Support from Councilmember Lynch. Any discussion from the table?
Yes, Mayor.
Councilmember Jacobs.
While I get some of the comments, I also disagree with some of them. With the recreational, I don't believe it's regulated by the state, so it's not tested. The individuals could go get it tested if they wanted, but that doesn't mean they will. Some of the laws that Mrs. Ross talked about, those are state rules. You know, we don't have any control over those. With it not being tested, I don't know how safe it is. I don't know how safe the medical is, but at least they're saying the state's testing it and regulating it. Also with the security that they're making the medical marijuana's facilities go through, should be a relatively safe business. Nothing's 100% safe, so, but it will be safer than recreational. One of the comments was that a lot of cities are going to be selling it. A lot of cities aren't selling medical. So what's the better? I'd rather do the medical and see how it goes and let the state set up what they need to, and we'll move on from there. But I don't think with the rules, the way they're set up, with the state and the federal, that it's to our benefit to have recreational in the city right now. That's all.
Any other comments?
Mayor,
Councilmember McCarge.
I think the arguments that were made, I understand them, but the one statement that you can't put the toothpaste back into the tube, that's exactly right. We can't have the marijuana, recreational marijuana start up and then find out, oh, whoa, this is going to be more than we want or can handle. I agree with Councilman Jacobs. We need to, first of all, let's see if the medical marijuana, how that goes. And also, some of the stuff coming from the state has been confusing or it's just not as clear because, of course, it's new for the people in the state. So I would say, yes, let's wait and see. 6 months, a year. We can't put the toothpaste back into the tube.
And I'm going to make a comment, too, that like Councilmember Jacobs said, there's some cities not even allowing medical marijuana in their city. So we're allowing that. We're just saying no to recreational right now. That could change down the road, but I think there's cities watching us to see how our medical marijuana sales go and how that sits. It's too new, and like you said, we're not going to jump out there because then you can't pull it back. So we're allowing medical right now, and that's our start, and that's better than a lot of other cities. Anybody else?
Mayor?
Councilmember Earl?
For me, the experience of having medical marijuana in the city and the constant change in the legalities that we're dealing with, I want to sit back. The state never properly hammered out how any of this is going to happen. These are all going to be played out in court for years and years. That and in my work dealing with the blatant abuses already of just the medical marijuana, it's something that I'm very cautious about, and right now I'm in favor of the moratorium or not allowing the recreational, just because this has already turned into a big debate. It's going to turn into a lot of court time, and I want to see how it plays out first. Thank you.
Anybody else? From the general public? Well, we're getting ready to vote on this now.
Thank you. Craig Aronoff again from Aronoff Law. If I may, Mr. Jacobs, as it relates to testing, and just address the concern and comment real quick. There is a set of testing. There is a safety compliance facility as a licensee. It's hopefully a licensee that might even find its way into Garden City as well, and operating a facility here locally. But every product, before it can get sold at a provisioning center, be it in the medical and in any recreational store into the future, will be a tested product. The product that people will grow in their homes, the product that the recreational law will allow to happen in Garden City, whether you approve commercial facilities or not, none of that will be tested. None of that will be in the mainstream. None of that will be protected. So not offering an opportunity for the users that might wish to have recreational opportunities to find a store nearby is going to cause them to seek it from the neighbor who's growing it or wherever else. So it won't necessarily eliminate the black market or the use of it locally. And so I just want to point out, from a testing perspective, the institutional commercial facilities that we're going to be having will have those safeguards, going through testing protocols that go back nearly 20 years through California. As it relates to the other concerns in the tube and the toothpaste, I think, as I said from the onset, I just want to revisit the opportunity. I understand why we want to take a pause, allow us to set up these medical facilities, show you what they can do. Mayor, I think you're right. Whoa. Maybe many people will be watching, and we want them to see some really good operators and doing it correctly, and we hope that you'll be proud of what they're doing. Thank you.
Okay. Anybody else? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Hearing none, that motion passes 7-0. Moving on to item 2, Housing Rehabilitation Project.
Mayor?
Councilmember Squires.
I move to award the contract for the Housing Rehabilitation Project number 18-01-004 to Onsite Solutions Incorporated in accordance with the posted bid packet using CDBG funds, and to authorize the city manager to enter into a contract with Onsite Solutions in the amount of $26,400.
Support.
Support from Councilmember Kerwin. Any comments from the table?
Yes, Mayor.
Councilmember Jacobs.
I know at the last meeting I had asked about if any of the bidders are union or what cities they're out of. And I know we've got 5 vendors here. Doesn't say anything if they're union. And this goes on,
This was done some time ago. This wasn't just a recent bid process.
but we still couldn't find out if anybody's union or what cities they're out of?
Video.
Thank you, Mayor, members of the council. I am from McKenna Associates, and I'm one of the CDBG coordinators for the city. I work with Patrick Sloan. He was not able to be here tonight, so I'm here to cover this item for you. To our knowledge, none of these contractors are unionized, at least not in what the bid packet information that they have submitted. This particular contract that you're awarding had come before you in February. The contractor who had bid the least amount, who was awarded the contract, after the contract was awarded, decided that the amount that he had bid was not enough to cover the project and came back with a change order for several $1,000s. The building official determined that it did not match the scope because apparently the contractor had blind bid without visiting the site. And so we turned down their change order, at which time the contractor said, I no longer want to do this project, and he withdrew from it. So at this time, we have a homeowner who's waiting for the repairs, so we picked the next lowest bidder. And Onsite Solutions does a lot of work in downriver communities. They have done a lot of CDBG projects in Garden City, so they are a verified contractor who's done good work for the city.
Right, I know the name, and I know they do good work. it was just something, there's some others coming in that I'm not going to ask every time, but,
I think the question, council, would be, is that going to be a standard point that we put in our bid packages to make sure, is that going to make a defining decision on if they're a union contractor company or not, or is that just a point of bringing it to the agenda that this one is chosen as lowest bidder, but they're not a union house? Does that matter, or is that a vote by the council as consensus that they should be union first?
I'm not saying they need to be union first.
Yeah.
I'd like to know if they're union or non-union. Just like our parking lot issues we have, we went with the non-union because they were a little bit cheaper than the union, and we're suffering
Yeah.
suffering now over it.
But it sounds like that's a decision that you want to
Just
know
to-
if it's
just to get
union
the
makes
info.
makes a difference in the contract or
It
not.
wouldn't hurt just to give us the information, and each council member is going to vote.
So we'll put in the
how they
bid
feel.
package to ask them so that
It's
when they
just a question, are you
respond.
union or are you
Okay.
non-union?
We
there's
could
a
always
difference
find that information out, but we need to make sure it's not against Wayne County rules to ask for that information into the bid packet. Wayne County strictly regulates what can be and cannot be in the bid documents. So provided the county is okay with it, we can always add in whether that information
And
is
you can
required
let
or not.
Mr. Doherty know.
Absolutely.
Talk to the
I mean,
I
that's
shall.
for the other bids also, but, as any laborer knows that there's a difference between union and prevailing wage, two different things, so,
Okay.
that's all.
Any other comments
Thank
from
you.
the general public? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Hearing none, it passes 7-0. Item 3, Dearborn Consolidated Dispatch Services. I'm going to call up Chief Tim Gibbons, our police chief.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor and Council. As you're aware, for a number of years now, we've been examining the possibility of consolidating dispatch services with Dearborn. We're currently, our dispatch provider is out of Westland, in a combination with Wayne, Inkster, and Westland. Over this last little bit, we've been in discussion with Westland, Wayne, and Inkster about the possibility of all of us going at the same time over to Dearborn. That has made some good progress, and at one of their last council meetings, the city of Dearborn offered us a contract to consolidate our dispatching services with Westland's, Inkster's, and Wayne all at the same time. After a lot of discussion, a lot of examination about the level of service to be provided, the cost, and the term and the agreement, I've decided that I think it's a good idea to bring forth the council for a final decision. The consolidation, we believe, will save the city a significant amount of money on its service cost, around $166,040 per year. We'll also save from any capital upgrades needed. One of the many things that are coming down the pipeline is states mandating certain technologies be in dispatch centers, which is a tremendous cost. So for cities to really go it alone and dispatch these days is a high cost. Cities can both increase service and save on capital by combining. Making an even larger dispatch center than we're already a part of helps us continue to save even more. Also, the dispatch plans, the way it's staffed, the type of service they plan on providing, I've had time to examine, and I believe it'll just do nothing but improve where we're at from today. So with that, I brought that to you. What this is a resolution to, one, if all 4 cities who are currently in an agreement to dispatch out of Westland all decide to go to Dearborn, we will all do so. Currently, the city of Wayne, the city of Westland have all voted to go. But like good partners, they won't go without us, and just as we wouldn't leave them. So what we're proposing today is, first part of that is in this resolution, is that if council so agrees to go, we would go contingent upon Inkster, Wayne, and Westland going, and 2 of the 3 have already passed to go, so long as we do. So that's what's before you tonight, and I'd be glad to answer any questions.
Any questions from council? Okay, looking for a motion?
Mayor,
Councilmember Earl?
I move to approve the attached resolution concerning the consolidation of emergency dispatch service in Dearborn and the termination of the current interlocal agreement concerning dispatch services.
Support.
Support from Councilmember Lynch. Any further discussion at the table? From the general public? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Hearing none, motion passes 7-0. Chief, I'm going to keep you at the podium for in-car cameras.
Yes, Mr. Chair, thank you. All right, so the next item on the agenda is in-car camera, and some of this will cover also body-worn cameras. At last week's budget meeting, I discussed that we were approaching a time when we were going to need to get new equipment and re-up our service agreement with Axion, who provides our current body-worn cameras and storage. They actually, our contract to store with them actually, not perfectly timed, ends before the next budget year begins. So what we did was in December, we solicited some numbers about what it would take to have body-worn cameras and then add in-car cameras. And in-car cameras is a feature we currently don't have. In-car cameras provide a recorded view of the front of the car and the back seat. Currently, our officers all carry body cameras, and we've seen tremendous success in complaint resolution and gathering evidence at scenes. We think that at the police department that adding the in-car camera onto our service package would only be a huge benefit, both reducing liability and collecting evidence on traffic stops. One of the things in Michigan law is under the Governmental Tort Liability Act, we can be sued for simple negligence by the failure to operate a car properly, which brings a lot of lawsuits. Because simple negligence is just it's a much lower standard for us to be sued. Most standard suits for cities are higher, like gross negligence. So what we're at a point where we'd like to have a recording if our cars or our vehicles are involved in an accident, because police officers are constantly driving and there's always a potential for accidents. We'd have a recording of the incident. Not to mention we'd have a great way to gather evidence. Just the front of a police car quite often sees a lot of things that make great evidence in court. So what we did was, this is a 5-year package, both for body cams and in-car cameras. I'll be discussing the in-car camera part. It's divided into 2, but it includes storage and the purchase of installation of cameras. And every 2.5 years during the length of the contract, new cameras would be installed to keep current with technological advances. Why I bring this before you today and not normally, and as I know I discussed it as a budget item, is because our storage contract runs out and the 2018 and 2019 prices will expire. When we got these quotes, it was with the anticipation of making it in the budget year. As Axon's informed us, those were old prices. We face an increase of about $30,000 if we don't make some kind of agreement. My concern was that we were subverting the budget process, that you guys still need time to make a decision as to what we should have in our budget and what you're going to prioritize. So expressing that concern to Axion, they came up with a solution. One, a gap to get us between April, when our storage expires, and the new budget year. But also, if council elects not to appropriate the funds for these purchases in this budget year, that then we could terminate the contract with no cost. And it's actually one of the reasons I include such a lengthy thing is their master service agreement includes a clause that says if you as a council during your budget choose not to appropriate the funds, we would just notify them within a reasonable period of time, and only the things they'd actually done for us would be what would be charged for. They wouldn't be doing anything for us until the next budget year. So the budget will well be in order before this contract would even begin, and we would face any costs. So what this allows us to do, in agreeing to both the body cam and in-car tonight, allows us to do is take advantage of the previous pricing, get $2,500 worth of storage for the next 3 months for free, and then put us in a position, if you so choose, to take advantage of it next year. But if we're faced with some kind of crisis during the budget or any type of priority change, then we can just terminate the contract at no risk for the city. So.
Okay. Motion's in order. Councilmember Jacobs.
I move to authorize the city to execute the attached sales agreement to purchase 10 in-car cameras, including installation, related equipment, licenses, and storage, in an amount not to exceed $102,450 over 5 years.
Support.
Support from Councilmember Kerwin. Any further discussion at the table?
I think this is something our city definitely needs. I think it's very important, especially when you were telling us how when they have to jump out of the car and they have to remember to turn it on. That could be a safety issue, just sitting there wondering if they have their camera on.
Mayor?
Councilmember McCarty.
First of all, I'd like to thank the city manager and Chief Gibbons, because I called early this morning, because the cameras are, to me, an excellent future for us. But I was concerned about the budget process, and truthfully, it just kind of went over my head at the budget meeting exactly what you were doing, and I just kind of looked at this, didn't look at the whole contract, so I apologize for that. But the budget process is important, and I appreciate that you saw that and that you handled that appropriately, because the budget process is, we're supposed to get all of the revenue and expenditure for the whole city, and then there's a debate. Do we want to do this? Do we not want to do that? So it's part of the process. But not moving forward with this tonight would also be very bad. And the fact that you've already got a contract that says, hey, if we don't go through the budget process. So I do appreciate that. Thank you for answering my questions so well this morning when I interrupted your morning. So
No interruption.
thank you.
You're welcome.
Okay, any other comments from the table? From the general public? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes 7-0. Item 5, police body-worn cameras.
Mayor?
Councilmember Lynch.
I move to authorize the city to execute the attached sales agreement to purchase 35 body-worn cameras, related equipment, licenses, and storage in an amount not to exceed $116,764.45 over 5 years.
Support.
Support from Councilmember Kerwin. Any discussion about these from the table?
Just to clarify, they work in conjunction with the dash cams, right?
Yes,
The old
yeah,
ones.
I
do not.
apologize. I should have mentioned, these are advanced beyond our current body cameras that they're now becoming somewhat obsolete. What happens is with the body cameras, works in conjunction with these in-car cameras. So upon an activation inside the car of the lights or the in-car camera, a button, what the officer's body camera will also click on.
Sets
What's
it in
great about
motion.
that is, often the most important time an officer need these cameras on are very high stress. So for the officer, it gives him one less thing he has to remember to do when he's, quickly exiting his car and entering into a dangerous situation. Because right now, it is a simple tap, but those things become quite difficult when you're focused on, something that's life to death. So, it definitely meets, one of our goals, which is to get these incidences on camera. It helps both sides. It protects the person and the officer, and it's great evidence.
Yep.
Thank you.
Any other comments from the general public? Oh, Councilmember
No, I
Squires.
was just going to say, you need all the help you can get out there, as do, the criminals.
Yep.
Just to keep everybody safe.
Yeah, we've seen nothing but positive since we introduced the body-worn camera program. Everybody is good when there's a camera, so.
Exactly. Thank you.
Comments from the general public? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Seeing none, that passes 7-0.
Thank you, Mayor and Council.
Thank you, Chief. I think you're all set now. Item 6, 2019 Asphalt Resurfacing Program Contract Awarding.
Mayor?
Councilmember Squires.
I move to approve the contract for the 2019 Road Bond Asphalt Reconstruction Program to C1 Contracting, or CI Contracting of Brighton, Michigan, in an amount not to exceed $2,356,386, and the construction services contract for the 2019 Road Bond Asphalt Reconstruction to Hennessy Engineers of Southfield, Michigan, in an amount not to exceed $182,210, for a combined total of $2,538,596.
Support.
Support from Councilmember McCarge. As promised, we are going to start fixing the roads in Garden City.
Yes.
Ryan, did you want to make any comments about this contract from Hennessy?
Sure. Good evening, Mayor and Council. So this is the last part of the road improvements program for this year. This is for the rehabilitation of 7 asphalt streets throughout the city, doing full depth reclamation like we've done on Craig Avenue and 2 years ago on Hubbard Avenue, and 2 small sections of James and Cambridge last year. It also include drainage improvements, sidewalk improvements as well. We did have 8 contractors pick up the contract documents, and we only had 1 bid turned in from CI Contracting at $2,356,000. I did reach out to a few of the contractors that did pick up but didn't submit bids. I did get a response back from one. They did say that there was for them, it was a lot of subcontract work that would be involved in the project. They were strictly an asphalt paving contractor, and there's a lot of drainage improvements. We're also replacing a water main on 2 of the streets, so they felt that there wouldn't be enough time to complete they didn't know if they'd be able to complete the project in time, having so much subcontract use as part of the project. We did discuss with administration, do we want to put it back out to bid or not? Couple things, obviously the timing of the year, but also the risk if we do put it back out to bid, do we get higher bids than what we've received here with this one bid? We have worked with CI Contracting on several road projects in the past. They would be doing the majority of the work. They would just be subcontracting the asphalt placement itself and the sidewalk placement. They do all the prep work for that work for them. So we are recommending to proceed with this project. I did also attach into the council packet a summary of all the road projects that have been bid out this year, and overall we're $200,000 under budget. Even though this project is over what our estimate was, we are still $200,000 under budget overall, plus $25,000 under budget on the water main portion as well. So we are looking at doing it.
We can get done.
So we are looking at doing additional work with that money this year.
Absolutely. This gets approved in the next minute or so. How soon are we going to see them out here starting on our streets?
This project, we're looking probably around late April to early May to get going. We do have pre-construction meetings for the other 3 projects tomorrow afternoon. One did mention that they would like to start next week on the Maplewood Avenue project. If everything goes well and the frost laws might be lifted early, like we do expect, they may start working next week on Maplewood.
And then for the residents that thought Hubbard was done between Maplewood and Warren, they only got the base coat down, and then the cold weather came, and we were not able to finish that project, and we have a few potholes because that was just the base.
Yes.
So they got to redo that, and then they got to put the final top coat on. So how soon will they be out there finishing Hubbard, which was started last year?
Our construction department is supposed to be meeting with the contractor out there, I believe, next week to discuss the completion of that project, to do the repairs, mark out what needs to be repaired before we put that final layer down. My guess is it'll be early May. That's usually when the asphalt plants start to open back up. But as soon as the plants open up, that's their first project to get back onto.
Okay, I just want the residents to know that Hubbard is not done, and it will be completed. It never received the top coat because of the cold weather that came quicker than we thought last year. So a lot of good news. Our roads are going to start getting fixed. Any other comments?
I have a question.
Councilmember McCarty?
I know they always have inspectors for cement work to make sure the cement quality, and do you have inspectors that inspect all through the stage of even?
Yes. Yes, we do have a full-time inspector on the job from start to finish.
Okay,
On every project in the city.
thank you.
Mayor?
Councilmember Jacobs?
Yeah, I want to, guess, piggyback on Councilmember McCarge. With our inspectors, it seems like every project, we're having problems. We got problems with every parking lot we've done. We've had to redo the ice arena twice. Moeller Park, we still have issues with. Craig Avenue still got restoration from 2 years ago that hasn't been done. Is there a way we can hold inspectors responsible? I mean, it seems like we're paying people a lot of money to supposedly inspect, but yet roads aren't getting done, parking lots aren't getting done properly, and they're getting their money and we're holding.
They're getting done, but they're not to the quality that we're expecting.
Yes.
Right.
I just received on my desk today was the bids we put out for inspecting fees to see where we are. I believe 7 or 8 different companies have put their RFPs in, requests for proposals. So that's something that we're going to be reviewing as far as the inspection work goes. Hennessy has been doing inspecting. They've also done the engineering plans. It's a fine line that we're going to be working through. Of course, I have high expectations also of excellence in everything we do to make sure whatever we do with the inspecting for future projects, they're involved with the actual engineering firm to make sure they're on the same page. Because then what we end up with is a contractor who did a questionable job, engineering plans being questioned by the inspector, and the inspector blaming both of them for not doing a good job. So if we do go with outside inspectors, which we may, they just have to make sure they're in conjunction with the engineering plans or adding to the plans to make sure if I'm going to be inspecting this project, this is what should be done at this project, so they're not following bad plans. So yes, we actually are in that process right now of considering new
I'm just tired
inspectors.
of every project it seems we do, we're doing twice.
Right. And I want to make a few comments too, to Hennessy. and you can pass this on to the contractors. Garden City's going to be spending $15 million over the next 5 years. We're going to be watching closely, and if we're not happy, we can find different engineer companies, we can find different contractors. So we're expecting you guys to really inspect and watch these guys and make sure we're getting quality work. I can tell you, myself and the city manager will also be driving around this summer, looking at all these projects. And we know certain things to look for, and we ask certain questions, but we're going to be watching close because we're spending a lot of money. We've made promises to our residents. We want our roads fixed, and we want them fixed right. So we've given your company some nice contracts to oversee these projects, and we're expecting your team to do that.
Yes.
And I wish you'd please pass that on to your team.
Will do.
That we are expecting what we pay for.
Yes.
Okay.
We'll do that.
Any other comments from the table?
I have another question. We usually hold, I mean, I know we usually pay in steps, correct?
Yes.
That final payment doesn't go through until final inspection?
That's correct. So, for example, the parking lots here at City Hall, we're still holding a significant amount of money, and we are meeting with that contractor here as soon as the weather improves too, to make corrections to these lots as well. But yes, we do hold retainage on the contractors until the project is complete.
So the parking lot isn't really going to be a redo, they're just going to make sure it's up to the standard that we want because you held back payment?
There may be portions of the lot that may need to be milled off and redone, the surface. That's what we'll be walking through the entire site to determine that, but yes, we will make sure it's to the specifications of the city.
Thank you.
I should say, Mayor Pro Tem Jacobs has been talking about this for some time, questioning that, which is the reason we went through the bid process for other additional inspectors. So it's not the first time he's brought it up, of course, so we're moving forward on that request.
Very good. Any other comments from the table? From the general public? Yes. Mr. Jones. I like your jersey.
Mike Jones, Garden City. I'm just glad that you're going to finally start fixing the damn roads. I know that my block is not on your schedule for this year. Hopefully it will be eventually, because currently the safe driving speed is 5 miles an hour.
Okay. Thank you. Let me say this to the residents at home in TV land. Yes, we have a lot of bad roads in Garden City. We do know that. However, we cannot fix them all in year one. It is a 5-year plan. So we can't do it all the first year. Please keep in mind, we'll be doing roads the next 4 years after this year, and probably beyond that. But we are going to start fixing the roads, but we can't get everybody's road done in year one. So.
And Mayor, to add to that, so everybody understands at home also watching, we have about 100 miles of road, probably 80 miles of it probably really needs to be replaced, and we have the money for 15 miles of that. So anyone that's on the 16th or 17th mile, that's far from being 80, but they would be off the list also. So there's only so much when you only have money for 15 when you need to do 80. So we'll be working our way through as much as we can.
Exactly. Anybody else from the general public? Okay. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, Mr. Ryan, you got a contract. Motion passes 7-0. Item 7, call for a public hearing for a DNR grant application.
Mayor?
Councilmember Lynch.
I move to call for a public hearing on Monday, April 1st at 6:00 p.m. at the Garden City Police Department in the community room to hear comments on the proposed 2019 DNR grant application for playground improvements at Garden City Park.
Support.
Support from Councilmember Kerwin. This is just for calling for the public hearing. We'll have discussion on this on April 1st. Any other comments on the table on calling for the public hearing from the general public? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes 7-0. Okay, council members and residents, item 8, resolution of priority. Our Wayne County Commissioner Glenn Anderson called me and asked me if I could get you guys to pass a resolution to get Cherry Hill repaved from Merriman to Inkster. They did Merriman towards Wayne Road, but he's getting a lot of complaints, so he's asking Inkster and us and Dearborn Heights to pass resolution to help him fight the fight down at the county end to get Cherry Hill done. He said it would help if we would pass a resolution. So that's what this is on here for, at the request of our county commissioner, to approve a resolution to get Cherry Hill paved from Merriman to Inkster so he can go fight for us and hopefully get that approved.
Mayor?
Looking for a motion. Councilmember Kerwin.
Motion to pass a resolution of priority for the repaving of Cherry Hill Road between Inkster Road and Merriman Road.
Support.
Support from Councilmember Jacobs. Any comments from the table?
I'd just like to thank Commissioner Anderson for bringing this forward.
Yep. And again, for the residents, Cherry Hill, Warren, Inkster, Vinoy, these are all county roads. They're nothing to do with Garden City. We fix the side streets. So this is our county commissioner trying to get Cherry Hill done. Just so you understand, a lot of people think these roads that we're going to spend our money on that. That's a county road. That's nothing to do with the city of Garden City. We're just trying to help the county commissioner get this approved so he can, because it does affect Garden City residents. Any other comments from the table? From the general public? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes 7-0. Item 9, to approve the mid-year budget amendment. I'm going to turn this over to Mr. Miller, our clerk.
Good evening, Mr. Mayor and members of the City Council. Tonight before you is a mid-year budget amendment. Part of the process of starting the budget is to actually look at where we're at and kind of take a snapshot and then work forward to develop the next year's budget. When the budget amendment is being looked at, we're looking at each appropriation line item to see where the funds are either over or under in the budget, excuse me, to again make sure that the projects are being funded properly. If there is something that needs to be moved to the next year, that is being pulled out of the budget and then being put into the next year. And again, giving us a good snapshot and groundwork to look at where we're at and where we're going for the development of the next year's budget. So again, before you is this mid-year budget, and I'd like to see that it gets approved. Then what will happen after the approval is then we'll be able to do journal entries to start to balance these line items so that we will have a good picture again to see where we're at today and how we can develop the budget for next year.
Okay. Motion's in order.
Mayor?
Councilmember Squires.
I move to approve attached budget amendment as part of the mid-year budget review.
Support from Councilmember Earl. Any comments from the table?
Yes, Mayor.
Councilmember McCarthy.
First of all, I'd like to thank the city manager for pulling this from the last meeting, mainly because I saw it and I went, okay, I don't understand it. So, part of the reason I worked on my first budget in my 20s. The budget from then until I retired really hadn't changed much. They did everything about the same. So I understood it. There have been changes made, and I was able to sit down with our, financial advisor, and they explained to me the changes. Some of it's semantics. There's really no change, but there's but I could not, if this would have been where I didn't understand it, I would have had to say nay or, and I didn't want to do that. So again, I appreciate it. I spent a couple hours, because I must be slow, but anyway, a couple hours going over, how we're doing the use of the fund balance, which is our savings account, and how we use it in our budget. And I won't go into a lot of detail. If people want to know more about our budget process, we have our budget meeting next Monday at 6 o'clock. And having said that, we had one, the first one already, and it was probably one of the best budget hearings I've been to, where I really got to hear and understand exactly what was going on. And I've done budgets for a long time, so I think that says a lot. But this, again, I appreciate that. I'm not one, I don't mind change, put it that way. I don't mind change as long as I understand it, and I think there's a good reason for it. And after a couple hours, I do believe that I understand it, and I can also support it. That's all.
Thank you. Anybody, any other comments on the table? From the general public? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Hearing none. Motion passes 7-0. This time, I'm going to open up for public comments for items that are not on the agenda. There is a 3-minute time limit. Anybody wishing to speak, please come to the podium and state your name. No public comments? Okay, we'll move to city manager's report.
Thank you, Mayor. Just want to reiterate what Councilwoman McCarge said. Monday is our next budget meeting. That's Monday, April 1st at the police station at 6 p.m. Also, I want to thank Tipton Academy for this morning allowing me to read to all of their second graders, I'm sorry. They
wanted to promote them this morning also?
Yes, well, they were great kids. They actually read better than I did. So I really enjoyed myself. I read, just so everyone knows, the Tiki Tiki Tembo, Naushaw Rembo, Chari Bari Richie Piperi Pembo book, which is a favorite of mine from the 60s and 70s. The kids did not know that book. And then the true story of the three pigs, which is really how the wolf was framed, that he was the innocent one in the entire story. So most of the kids raised their hand. They believed the wolf instead of the three pigs. So that was enjoyable this morning. I appreciate that.
We're glad to have you.
That's it.
Thank you. Councilmember McCarge?
Okay. I would like to congratulate the Garden City High School Theater. They had a great play, the high school edition. And I'd also like to congratulate Mrs. Shimsky, who will be retiring after 33 years. She's just done a great job with the theater group. So that was a really great time. The Start Smart program. We had a Start Smart program years ago. In fact, Officer Breen, his son was about 3-4 years old when we did this. And but we did it at one of our, at the gymnasium at Maplewood. And, Officer Breen's son proceeded to jump off the stage. And obviously, the gym was not the best location for a Start Smart program. So to be able to do the Start Smart program over at the ice arena, I think it's awesome because it really is an excellent program. And now we have the facility to do it. So, and I really like the newsletter, Dan, because communication it's hard without a community newspaper. Will you have a few of these laying around so that people can, because as my mom would say, not everyone has a computer, so. Okay, CDBG funds, we are getting, that house, up to date. But I do want you to know that the Community Development Block Grant Program has changed. The Wayne County Commissioners voted to make some really big changes in it. And I know Patrick Sloan, who works with us here in Garden City, is working hard so that Garden City residents will still have access to those funds for housing rehab. It's just going to be a little harder. It's going to be a little harder for them. And I appreciate Commissioner Anderson. He did vote no for it. He wanted to try to keep more funds administered right here in the community, but it did not go through, so it is going to be a change. April 13th is the Kiwanis and Library Extravaganza for kids 3 to 11, and tickets are available at the library. And I think that's enough, so I'll move on.
Thank you. Councilmember Kerwin?
First off, I had a toothache this week, and I have this irrational fear of the dentist. a friend of mine referred Dr. Fisher on Warren Road, and they were absolutely amazing. They walked me through the process, made me calm, so I just want to thank them for helping me out. A second note, the best way to keep business in Garden City is to shop local. I have been getting many questions regarding the businesses or lack thereof in the city. When I came onto council, I wanted to tackle that, but I was a little naive on what it would take or entail to do that. For those that don't know, because I didn't know this when I started, we do not pick and choose what businesses come in. We do, however, have ordinances put in place to make sure the city looks and stays nice and safe. The DDA does have some different guidelines of their own, though. We have a lot of strip malls with small businesses or vacancies now, and it's hard to find a business that fits that criteria to move into such a small space. I received a call from a local business here in Garden City, and they're actually doing so well they want it to expand. The problem that they had was, though, after calling several of these places for rent, and after several attempts, they did not receive a call back. The places that did get a hold of, they wanted an obscene amount of rent, and they also demanded other things. This is not the first time that I've heard this. It's not that we are not actively trying to move businesses in, but it definitely doesn't help when the owners don't call back, don't want to rent or sell, and I hate to use the term, but it's almost like they hold them hostage. And that they just don't want to do anything with them. But they're the owner. They are the ones that pay their taxes, so who are we to demand what right they have to do with their business as to selling or renting? As long as they're paying their taxes and following the ordinances, we can't really do anything about that. But I would like to stay proactive in still trying to get businesses in here. I brought up bringing on an economic development director, but for our size of our city and the cost, it just wouldn't work. I have talked to Doc about updating our economic development page. Not that they're going to call them back, but with phone numbers and maybe help promoting them. Maybe they're just not finding the right tenant they want into their business. And also maybe we could look into some of our zoning.
Yes. Councilwoman and I have been talking about this for a little while now. One of the points she makes about the owners of the properties themselves are sticking the tenants with redoing their interior. Now, a wall here or there to change open space to more office space isn't that complicated, but it's fully redoing the interior to the point they basically have some dilapidated buildings inside. So who wants to come in and rent a facility when you know the first day you have to spend money to fix that landlord's building so drastically, not just for your own needs, but to make it habitable. That's an issue that we have, as she mentions, additional costs and things. So that doesn't make a place too inviting. I'm looking at bringing to the council in the next couple of meetings a facade improvement program, similar to what the DDA has downtown, is the idea of some of these businesses on Inkster and Warren, some of these building storefronts that look a little rough, that we would upfront the money, they pay back the taxes over a 5-year period with interest, and that way we basically act as a bank for some of these businesses. Of course, it's dealing with the owner, not the tenant, dealing with the owner, so they're responsible through taxes to pay us back. So that can help some of our buildings where owners may be not looking at banks because they're not interested in the banks assisting them. They can come to us and we can help them out a little bit. Part of what we discussed also was the zoning. I know the Vice Mayor had brought up before about there's a strip mall that's changed its zoning. So the store that's in the middle of the strip mall cannot move to the end of that strip mall because they're no longer allowed to be in that strip mall. So if they move, they are in violation. So right now they're grandfathered in. That's something when you look at the zoning overall, over time things change. What zoning did the city put in place 10, 15 years ago in that area that just doesn't work for us today when we're looking at trying to fill in some tenant space. And DDA, I know, fights with this on a regular basis of trying to control what happens downtown. But at the same time, if we've got empty spaces, how far does the council say, let's allow something, but at the same time, maybe 20 years from now, you look back and go, we shouldn't have allowed that toothpaste out of the tube. But on the other hand, how long do we want to go with some empty spaces? So that's Councilwoman and I talked this morning about the idea of taking a look at our entire zoning map. Again, I know periodically the city has in the past, but things change. And of course, we talked about economic development director as we discussed at the goal setting meeting with the council. We've got new roads coming in, we've got new businesses coming in. In the next year, that may be more of a viable thing, that we have something to sell. But at the same time, facade improvement programs and some of these other things that that person may be involved in, we can implement ourselves with a little bit of staff time. So I think we spend time over the next year of seeing what we can do with our vacancy ordinance. That'll be on the next agenda. And that's the exterior of the properties. Business owners that just left to Florida for 6 months and let the place go, that's not going to happen any longer once we get the vacancy ordinance in place. Hopefully at the next meeting, facade improvement, and then looking at some zoning, I think we'll certainly get the ball rolling, along with new streets and new businesses coming in as we see in the next year. So I think we're on a roll to move forward, but I think we have to do a little tweaking inside. Yeah, and I agree.
Okay. Is it all, Ms. Curran? That's it, okay. Councilmember Lynch?
As most people know, March is Reading Month, and we really take the time during March to promote reading in the schools. And on behalf of all of the Garden City schools, not only Tipton, but all the Garden City schools, I want to thank everyone, especially city staff, who's taken the time to come out and read to our students. I know today the mayor was at our school as well as Douglas School, reading to the children. I know the police department, the chief has read, Lieutenant Barton and Sergeant Shippey and Rudy came out to Tipton. The city manager and his wife came to read today. And tomorrow we have 2 firefighters. And I heard that Chief Harmon was out reading today as well. Okay. And there's many other officers and staff members that have been reading to students, as well as business owners and parents who have come in as mystery readers this month. Reading is important for all children. If you can't read, you're not going to get very far later on in life. So everything you can do to encourage reading at your home is a step forward for the kids. And so on behalf of all the schools, I want to thank everyone that came out to read during March's Reading Month. That's all I have.
Councilmember Jacobs?
Yes, I have a couple things. First off, the Garden City Lions Club had a pancake breakfast 2 Sundays ago. Excellent food. Took a while to get Doc out of there, but we did.
It wasn't a Big Mac, but it was close.
Thank the Chief Harmon and the fire department for the celebrity chefs they brought out there to cook the pancakes. I was there for a little while, and it was a good crowd, in and out all day, or not all day, all morning, and it's for a good cause. So good job there. Like Councilmember McCarge, I was at the Chicago play this weekend, and it's rather impressive for the high schoolers to put on a production like that, from the actors, actresses, to the band, to the lighting, and all that setup, and it's impressive. I'm not a big play guy, but it was enjoyable. It was really nice, and they should be proud of the work they did. Mr. Plamondon, while you're here, I know we lost one of the light poles that's up now. Are they going to be turning the lights on before long? I know last night the lights weren't on in the parking lot. I'll check tomorrow. Basically because baseball and nicer weather, we're going to have a lot of kids running around, and they don't always look in the parking lot, and when it's dark like it's been, dangerous. But I noticed they got the light pole up, so hopefully that comes up soon. Speaking of lights, we have this wonderful issue on Middle Belt that we just had a meeting with DTE a couple weeks ago, a month ago. Yep. They've given us updates, and we're still out from Maplewood to Beechwood on the east side of Middle Belt.
It was on for one day, right?
Huh?
It was on for one day.
I think maybe one day. I couldn't tell with the sunlight, but maybe we can reach out. I know they usually send us a update on Tuesday or Wednesday, but it sure seems like we're dark, and some of these lights have been out for a while. I know the one across the street by the weld shop's been out for months. The one by the fire department's been off and on apparently since 2015. So I'd like to get that going. And the last thing, I want to clarify some comments I made at the last meeting on the roads. I think some people took it the wrong way. I do not think that anyone, that myself or anyone else at this table should pick the roads to get done. What I do question is when you have two roads that are getting done or scheduled to be done or are in bad shape by ratings, we should do the worst road first, not do one that's half bad and save the rest for later on. We have, for the residents, they're rated 1 to 10, 1 being the worst road. In the city right now, per the ratings, concrete roads, we have 3 blocks that are rated a 1, 16 blocks that are rated a 2. Asphalt roads, we have 78 blocks that are rated a 1. We have 102 blocks that are rated a 2. So we've got 180 asphalt roads that are bad, really bad. We have 19 that are concrete that are really bad. And they're not all going to get done in the first couple of years, 5 years. It just can't be done. But my point was and still is if we have roads that need to be completely redone, apples to apples, do the roads that are in the worst shape, not skip them over and do roads that are only half bad. And that's all I have. Thank you.
Councilmember Squire?
Okay, just real quick, Dan, I'm very pleased to see the programs and events that are going to be going on for our residents. You know, it's a long time coming, and, you know, just a great job. And that's all I have. Thank you.
Okay, Councilmember Earl?
Just a couple of things. Councilwoman Kerwin, I agree with you and your comments on economic development. And I'm sure we're going to have extensive conversations on that. One thing to keep in mind is there are programs in some cities that they bring somebody on with the understanding that they fund their positions through grants or partially fund their positions through grants. There's a lot of different avenues to go down, but I agree it's a priority. We don't have control over who the businesses lease their buildings to, but it would be nice to have somebody dedicated to that position. So I agree with you on that. And Dan, I've seen a lot of really good improvement in the Parks and Recs, and I appreciate it. You know, I'm a sports kind of person. It's one of my priorities, and I love the Smart Starts, the MLB pitch, hit, and run. So keep that up. It's a good job. I like the new Facebook page, so I think it's moving in a positive direction. Thank you.
Okay, Mr. Miller?
I have nothing tonight. Thank you.
Okay, as I have a few things. Councilmember Lynch mentioned March is Reading Month. I want to thank Douglas Elementary for inviting me to read to the third graders this morning. And then I was asked to come over to Tipton to read to the first graders, followed our city manager. I guess he was having trouble with the big words, so they wanted me to come and read right after him.
Somebody sent me a video, by the way.
So
They gave me the big book.
no, had a great time with the kids at Tipton and at Douglas, and it was a great day to see their faces and how attentive they are when you're reading to them. Also, Dan Plumont, good job on the newsletter, and also the pancake breakfast. As always, it's great every year. I enjoy going to that. At this time, a motion is in order to go into closed session for pending litigation and also the city manager's annual evaluation.
So moved.
Moved by Councilmember Lynch, supported by Councilmember Jacobs. Roll call, please. Mr. Miller?
Councilmember Kerwin.
Aye.
Councilmember McCarge.
Aye.
Councilmember Earl.
Aye.
Councilmember Squires.
Aye.
Councilmember Lynch.
Aye.
Councilmember Jacobs.
Aye.
Mayor Walker.
Aye. At this time, we're going to go into recess. Thank you.